Hey teens, illuminate. Here we go. We're getting into our lesson for today, and it is a servant receives God's promise. Who's a servant? It's David. He becomes king. Saul dies. He becomes king, and he receives a promise from God. So our doctrine is going to be the church and Christ's kingdom. And see, the important thing is that Christ already has a kingdom that's right here, right now, and it's his people. It's his body. And it started with that, but one day he will establish his kingdom. There'll be the rapture when he comes to get back his people. He will receive all the Christians. There will be the tribulation. Then there will be a millennial reign. Okay? And he's going to set up his kingdom there. And then Satan's going to try to do his last little hope to win. And Christ is going to conquer him. Satan's going to be gone. He's going to be gone. And we get to reign with Christ forever. Okay? And so that is the church. We get to reign with him forever. So that's what's awesome about who we serve. But as we get into this here today, I want to establish this. God doesn't need us. We need him. You say, what do you mean? Well, as we get into this, think about all the promises in our everyday life. How important are promises in everyday life? How many promises have you made in your life? I mean, one of the things that I've made is I've made a promise to my wife that I would never forsake her, whether she's healthy or sick, whether she's rich or poor, whatever that might be. I said that I would commit myself to her to the end of my life or hers. The only thing that would block that covenant is death from one of us. Okay? And then that's when the covenants end. I've made other promises throughout my life. When I was a kid, you used to make pinky promises. Some of you still do that as adults. But you make little pinky promises. There's other promises like contracts, like work contracts, and when you buy a vehicle, there's contracts and different things like that. When you get a loan, which you probably shouldn't do, but anyway, we'll talk about finances on a totally different level and totally different day. So what we're talking about is promises are a part of our everyday life. And how well do people keep them? Well, that's why we have contracts. You can't shake somebody's hand anymore. You have to have a contract. You have to have 50 pages in a contract. You kill a whole tree in order to have a contract. Why? Because people can't seem to keep their promises. Does God keep his promises? Yes, he does. And so we get into this, and David, he's king. Saul is dead. David's king. He's come to Jerusalem to rule there. He brought the ark to Jerusalem and put it in the tabernacle, the tent. And David, he says, I need to build a temple for God. I want to build a temple. Here I am in a house that's beautiful. It's a cedar wood. And I want to build a temple. And Nathan the prophet, who he's talking to, says, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's great. But God spoke to Nathan that night and says, hey, listen, this isn't going to be it. David's a man of war. He goes to battle a lot, and he's not going to be building this temple. But it wasn't just a plain old no. Have you ever gotten just a no before? It kind of frustrates you, doesn't it? Because there's no working through it. But God says no to him, but yet says, hey, there's some other things that I want to promise you here. So there's no temple, but there is a message that he wants to deliver. So 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 8 through 11a. It says, now therefore so shalt thou say unto my servant David, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people over Israel. So he went from shepherd to king. God took him there. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thine enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. So he's delivered them from battle. He kept them safe from Saul all that time. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more, neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more, as before time. And as since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people, and have caused thee to rest from all thine enemies. And so he's actually brought them to a place of rest for the time being. So he's given them a history. He's established all that he's fulfilled and done. And God's been with them every single step of the way. He's been with them. He hasn't forsaken them. He's been with them. You know, why is remembering God's faithfulness so important? Because that's the stepping stone to move forward. If God's been faithful in the past, then he's going to be faithful in the future. He's always kept his word, and we can trust in that. But as we go for these promises to give rest, it's not just physical rest, it's a spiritual rest. And that's going to be found in Jesus, in Christ alone. My hope is found. Okay? I use that song all the time as an illustration because it's so pointed. It's only in Christ that I can have this spiritual rest. And I can be physically rested, but yet not spiritually rested. And it'll ruin my physical rest when I'm not spiritually rested. Why? Because you watch people walking around all day long, and they might have the best sleep possible, but they're messed up because they have this hole in their heart that can only be fixed. It only can be filled by Jesus Christ. So they need to be spiritually at rest. So 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 11b, it says, "Also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. And when the days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. So there will be more that will come from David. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." Now, see, what came after was Solomon. Solomon was his son, and Solomon was the one that built the temple. David was the man of war. He couldn't do it, but Solomon could. But you know what? Solomon might have been that guy that everybody thought would have the kingdom forever, but it wasn't him. Because when Solomon came to rule, his throne wasn't forever at all. In fact, right after him, the kingdom was torn in two. His son was just horrific at leading his people and ended up splitting the kingdom in two. But Solomon didn't do so great either, in the sense that he was disobedient. He had multiple wives from all these other places, and guess what? With the multiple wives comes in pagan gods, because they were all from different countries, and they brought in their own gods, and he set up temples of worship and all these things. So there's so many problems with that. He needed a greater king that would establish this kingdom forever, and guess who that is? Jesus Christ, who would come through David's line. You go into verse 15 and 16, it says, "But my mercy shall not depart away from him as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee, and thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever." His line will reign forever because of Jesus Christ. This is a promise that was given by God. And listen, it's going to come true. I trust in it. I hope in it. I will be in heaven with Christ one day for all of eternity. There will be an established kingdom. I cannot wait. It's going to be amazing. Got a way better leader than what we've got right now. For sure. You can make the best president ever, and it still wouldn't compare to Jesus Christ. You could have the best king ever, and it still wouldn't be compared to Jesus Christ. He will be the perfect King of Kings. So, as we talk about God's promises, what promises that God has given that's helped you? One of the things that helps me sleep is the fact that God says he'll watch over me when I'm sleeping. When I can't take care of myself, he's going to watch over me. There is the promise that there will always be good that comes out of everything. What kind of good? According to God's will. So even if it's kind of rough for me, there's still going to be the ultimate good out of it. And I rest in that. Sometimes I've struggled to believe some of these promises because of the way that I feel in my trial, the way that I'm struggling through a temptation. But yet that doesn't change these promises. They're still true. The law of gravity remains whether I want it to or not. God remains and his promises remain whether I want it to or not, whether I feel like it or not. So that's something that we can rest in, that God's promises will ring true. No matter how it looks around us, I can still trust in God. And that's what I'm loving about today. In today's world and all the crazy chaos out there, when everybody wants to turn away from God, God still reigns. And I will rest in that. So I hope you are encouraged by that today. Keep trusting in God. We'll talk to you later.